From Tally to Cali,
It's time
to wake up.
Wake up!
Warchant.com is your ultimate Seminole sports source.
And this is Wake Up Warchant, presented by
Vitamin Energy. The vitamins.
The energy.
Now here's Warchant.com's Aslan Hajavandi
and Corey Clark.
Wake up! It's Wake Up Warchant presented by Vitamin Energy. Coming up on today's show, we're in Jacksonville. The offense showing signs of life. We discuss practice observations, the Renegade Express mailbag, and we're generating discussion sparked by Cummins. Wake Up Warchant presented by Vitamin Energy, vitaminenergy.com. Promo code Corey Clark, please.
It's Warchant BOGO.
What happens when I use that promo code over at vitaminenergy.com, the Warchant BOGO thing?
I think you get 3 if you buy 1.
Oh.
Is that what it is? Oh, no, it's just 1. No, sorry, that's what the O stands for. So sorry. It's not BitGo. It's BOGO.
Buy one, get one for everybody. I'm feeling good. Took a little bit Mood Plus the last few days in Jacksonville, next to the water. Come out to the coast, have a couple laughs.
Right.
Feeling good. Feeling good. You should do it too, everybody. VitaminEnergy.com. Knowles helping Knowles. 260 milligrams of all natural caffeine, no sugar crash. Clinically tested, clinically proven to improve your focus, your energy, obviously, your mood, your immune response, the pump in the gym. Shout out to a couple of the dudes in the YouTube comments who said I looked low-key jacked the other day in the stand-up. That helped your boy out. Felt pretty good.
Okay. Yeah.
But then, Corey, I'm here at the hotel, and for some reason I have this really bad habit. Shout out to my dad. Turned 81 yesterday. My dad likes to sing a lot in public, just randomly busts out into song. And like if I don't know, I just kind of hum songs. I sing songs that come to my mind. And I'm riding up the elevator, and I just sing this one song that for some reason came to my mind in like a falsetto voice. And the elevator arrives at the floor, and the doors open, and there's an absolutely gorgeous woman. And she's on her cell phone, but I don't think she's on her cell phone. I think she was just on her cell phone pretending she was on her cell phone so she didn't have to interact with me because she heard me singing in a falsetto voice by myself in an elevator at 2 in the afternoon in Jacksonville, Florida at a random Hilton Garden Inn.
What were you singing?
No one knows the song, so I'm not even going to bother doing it. But I'm like, oh, fragile. I'm going to delete it.
Nice,
I'm deleting that. I'm deleting that from the show.
Don't delete that. That sounded great.
Felt really weird. I don't feel any good about my arms being jacked now. But anyhow, we're here in Jacksonville, covering practice. Myself and our show fell. Go to warchant.com. Plenty of information over there from practice. They'll be doing it again later today. Not 100% sure, Corey, if they'll go to UNF. They did practice Wednesday at the flex field for the Jacksonville Jaguars. So I guess apparently they've got 2 indoor facilities, or maybe that's their indoor and they were simply outside. So some might think, Mike taking it easy on the boys, Corey. Wrong. He turned the AC off in there. It became quite uncomfortable. And then they ended up having a pretty good practice. The defense, I thought, we'll give it to the offense. Why not? I took my Mood Plus. Let's give it to the offense. I thought they
speaking of that read you had, I think I brought this up before, but obviously you were you come out to the coast, have a few laughs. That's from Die Hard, the original. You remember when he's saying that?
Yeah, when he's crawling through the ducks.
And he's got the lighter on.
Yeah.
And I think I brought this up before, so I hate to be repeating it, but even when I was a kid watching that movie, I'm like, wait, I don't get the impression he and his wife had the relationship, because she's the one that invited him out, theoretically, right?
Yeah.
You think his wife invited him out and said, come to the coast, we'll have a few laughs? Did you get the dynamic of that relationship at all? That it was supposed to be a fun, kind of carefree visit on Christmas?
Well, I guess maybe that's part of it. He knew it wasn't. It was going to be. He didn't know he was going to get involved in a terrorist standoff at the Nakatomi building. But he was like,
sure.
It's never works out well when we're all together. And maybe some of his friends were like, yeah, go out to the coast.
It just sounded like a direct quote from his wife. Come out to the coast. We'll have a few laughs. And it's like, man, she hates your guts. She didn't after you killed Hans.
Right.
Spoiler alert, everyone.
Corey.
He falls out of the window there at the end. Sorry. After he tapes a gun to his back. It's awesome. Y'all should go see it. Anyway, go ahead with the observations.
Will there ever be another movie that's as original and as cool as Die Hard?
Probably.
I'll always remember there's this famous quote.
Like in Every Man That Saves the Day? Probably.
Yeah, I remember, I don't even know if it's a real quote or not, but I think it's a real quote, and it was from somebody who apparently worked in the U.S. Patent Office, like in the late 19th century. And they're quoted or attributed as a saying that, everything that's been meant to be invented has been invented. Like basically saying there's no new ideas or concepts to conquer out there. And it's like, what a silly thing. Yeah. But I feel like when it comes to movies, man, we might have hit a saturation point. I don't know, what else can we possibly do when it comes to movies when we're diving into, the 9th most known comic book character from, the DC universe.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you. I know that's not what this show is about, but I'm a cinephile to a certain extent, and I'm very disappointed with the current climate of movies. But the flip side of that is there's better TV than there's ever been. If you want to call what's on the streaming services TV, these TV shows, quote unquote, they're awesome. So go watch those if you're tired of the comic book movies. But yes, Die Hard, great movie. And ironically, because I'm getting ready to take a flight here in a couple of weeks, I saw Die Hard 2 on an airplane. They showed that on an airplane as the in-flight movie, Die Hard 2, which if you guys haven't seen it, this isn't quite a spoiler. There's a jetliner that crashes and kills hundreds of people in the movie. And we're sitting on a Delta in 1989 or whatever watching a plane crash to the ground. So that was fun.
What are some of the names of the people he wants released, Hans Gruber wants released?
Oh, it's like Red Dawn?
Yeah, he's like the Red Dawn, like Asian Dawn.
I said I saw Asian Dawn. He's like, I saw him on 60 Minutes. Yeah, that was awful. Oh, great good movie.
What a good movie.
Yep, it was.
I wish I could say the offense was as awesome as the movie Die Hard is, but they were all right. I think they had their best day of the week, which is all we want to see. We want to see some growth and some progress, which most of it came in the second half of practice. Corey.
Let's hear it. Let's hear about it.
It came in team. A lot of this was situational stuff where it felt like I think they were doing second and long on the minus side of the field. So it seemed like they were getting two shots at it. And I don't think it was third down. I don't think they started on third and down and then did a third and fourth down. It felt like they were doing kind of on the minus side of the field to put pressure on the team to get the first down and not have to punt the ball. But they converted several of those instances, which was good to see. A completion to Lawrence Toafili and Malik Benson highlighted that period. Both of those were from the DJ Uiagalelei-led offense. So that was really good to see. Elijah Moore had a really good second half of the practice. He did have a drop two drops, I think, actually in the first part of practice, but he bounced back in the second part when they actually went to team drills. I didn't add up the completions, incompletions. It just seemed like when it came to situational stuff in 11 on 11, you saw this offense be able to kind of grind it out and figure out a way to get first downs and convert those situations. All that said, though, man, that the first half of the practice was dominated by the defense, and that was noted in the red zone part of the one-on-one, which I texted you and Ira, man. And this, again, Jeff mentioned in the stand-up the other day, this hasn't been a dismal offense by any stretch. And our guy James Bees, told me on YouTube to, live in the now. Don't worry about the Oregons and the Ohio States of the world.
I'm with him on that one, yeah, but I get it. Go ahead.
But there was a moment there in that practice where there was 13 straight reps in red zone one-on-one, and the defense won every single one of them.
Yeah.
Earl Little had a PBU on Ja'Kai Douglas. There was a wide-open drop by one guy that I think I was so disgusted I didn't even write their name down, but I wrote open drop. I almost wanted to come up with a whole new term called ODs instead of MAs, missed assignments, ODs, open drops. A shout out to Christian Smoke White. He had an interception in red zone one-on-one. It did end finally. The carnage ended when Jalen Smith
Jalen Brown.
Jalen Brown. Kind of mossed Azarie. I don't want to say mossed, but he did go up and pluck it, and then Azarie had his back to the ball.
Okay.
It was a really nice play, but it almost felt like we're not going to end this period until somebody freaking catches one. So maybe Azarie took it easy on them. But there was literally a moment there where there was 13 straight incompletions, 12 if you count that interception as being one of the other incompletions. So still a work in progress. But I guess Ira was saying maybe this will be an offense. I guess we're hoping. And again, that's my whole underscore of all this, Cords. I think we're getting to a point now where we're having to hope some sort of things. But this offense peaked in week 1 last year. Maybe this offense will peak in week 10 this year, which is probably more favorable, yes?
Or maybe week 16. That's where you're trying to get to, right?
Yeah, buddy.
Against Georgia, that's when you want this bad boy to peak. Yeah, I mean, look, we'll see. I wasn't there, so I can't really comment intelligently on it, and I don't really intelligently comment on many things.
Oh, stop.
Except Die Hard. I don't understand why she would say, let's have a few laughs. They don't laugh. That couple doesn't ever laugh with each other. I can't even imagine Bonnie Bedelia saying that. That's not something that would have come out of that character's mouth. But yeah, I think that it's good to hear about Jaylen Brown. He's a guy that, and I know it's one play, but it's a big deal that he beats his R.A. Thomas, even if it's just a one-on-one, because let's get out
of this period already, man. Somebody make a freaking play. He went and did it, so that's
well.
good.
And also, I know Norvell brought him up either 1 or 2 practices ago where he said it was Jaylen Brown's best day by far. Now, that's a guy we haven't talked about a ton, but he has made some plays, and that speed is that speed. He's pretty slight, right? He's not a big guy, so he's not going to typically make plays like that over a guy like Azareye'h Thomas, but it's good that he did, and he's a guy that's kind of an afterthought right now, but if he's coming on at the rate that maybe he is coming on, maybe he is somebody that we need to start thinking about as a guy that can really make an impact in 2024. Because obviously the speed is there. In the route running, he's a smooth kid, man. He's a smooth kid. He just hasn't quite made the plays, the noticeable plays of those true freshmen, but maybe that time is coming.
There was a scrap, by the way, on Wednesday. Loved it.
Okay, good.
Loved it a lot.
As long as it's between offense and defense.
Absolutely. Yeah, that'd be weird if it was the same.
Yeah, we wouldn't love that.
But, there's some chippiness after a play. They were doing the whole, like the 3 linemen versus the 3 offensive linemen versus like the 3 defensive linemen kind of blocking situation. I think the offense actually had won the rep, which was kind of good to see some saltiness from the defense from losing a rep because that's the standard that Adam Fuller set. And they've just been kind of dominating this preseason. But, yeah, like the helmet got ripped off. The guy who stood up, they were tussling. Guy rips off the helmet, falls to the ground. The guy who doesn't have his helmet on any longer is like, I still want some. Like, jumps down on the ground and starts trying to get some punches in. And everybody, poor Mackenzie Leonard, softball standout for Lonnie Alameda for a few years here at Florida State. She's helping out with the program. She's got the Bluetooth speaker on wheels, and she's like trying to be the voice of reason, but then kind of gets out of the way for a little bit. And then the cooler heads prevailed. They went out a really good practice. When they had their first snack break, Norvell was prowling up and down the sideline, clapping his hands, saying, good start, let's finish it. So I believe him wholeheartedly when he liked what they got in work-wise on Wednesday. It was good to also see that stuff happening. When it came to pass rush, early in the practice, I did notch this down. I had it 7-4 in favor of the defense. But the offensive lines, that's a weird situation. It's the whole, it's a 3-on-3 kind of thing where there's 3 defensive linemen, 3 offensive linemen. So that kind of goes into the whole fact of this offense.
And it's also not even like you're trying to beat your man. It's like leverage. You're trying to just not be turned.
Yes.
And you're trying to turn the lineman, but you're not trying to get by him. You're not trying to, if you're a defensive lineman, you're not trying to pancake him if you're an offensive lineman. You're literally just trying to get a stalemate to where you get the leverage you're supposed to have on the play. Mm-hmm. So if you're trying to push your defensive lineman a little bit to the right, that's where the gap is, that's the whole purpose. Not pushing him on his back. And if you're the defensive lineman, you're not trying to get by him either. You're just trying to, plug a gap. So it's really hard a lot of times to even know who wins those reps until you see which side is celebrating afterwards.
Period 14 one-on-ones. This was before the red zone. This was all defense as well. Quindarius stymied Lewayne McCoy. Nice pass breakup by Duke Cooper. Malik Benson with one of the rare
so
wins.
So when Quindarius gets a pass breakup, are we going to call him Q-tips?
Oh.
Pretty good, right?
Yes.
Those are Q-tips. He had 8 Q-tips on the season. All right, go ahead. Sorry.
Okay. Malik Benson caught one over Azareye'h, informed him of it as well, let him know.
Yeah.
Ricky Knight did something I've never seen before where he just jammed the guy so good the play just never even happened, and then everybody mobbed him.
Yeah.
It was, and he did it on a scholarship wide receiver. We won't say their name. We don't have to. Shaheem had a pass breakup on Deuce. Edwin Joseph with absolute blanket coverage on Jaylen Brown. Kyle Morlock with one of the big wins in one-on-one for the offense over, who's 24? Yeah, KJ Kirkland.
Yep.
Really nice recovery in a play between B.J. Gibson and Conrad Hussey, where Hussey was like dead to rights but somehow recovered and lunged and knocked it out the last second, got a PBU. Charles Lester with a pass breakup on Camden Fryer, which we've got a question about Camden Fryer in the mailbag. We'll do a quick detour to it right now. Do you think Cam Fryer, this comes from our guy on the Renegade Express mailbag, Seminole life, will Cam Fryer have a better career than his father, Corey? Matt stats, 1,432 yards in his career, 671 in his senior season.
Man, you're asking me that after 2 weeks? That's I'm going to say no just because those are good numbers. I don't know. I don't know in the last 10 years how many Florida State receivers have had 1,500 yards receiving in their careers. It doesn't happen a ton. So I'm going to say no, but I hope I'm wrong. Yeah, and Matt played as a freshman. Matt played in 90 as a freshman. He was playing. So I think he was a redshirt freshman. But he played all 4 years and started all 4 years in some capacity. So I would be surprised if Camden had that kind of career. He's got little, Brandon Cooks, little Steve Smith to him, though. I think he'll be able to make a good living. I was thinking more like Wes Welker or Restrepo. No, I don't see it. Okay, all right, fair. Yeah. Otherwise, that's pretty much the extent of the takeaways you could say. Shout out to Blake Nicholson. I said on the wrap-up, and I said it the other day on the show, and I'm not doing a good enough job, I don't think, of eloquently stating just how, I don't want to say incredible, but man, like Mike Norvell, the play designs that he's throwing out there every single day, different concepts, different formations, different schemes, but just absolutely designed to get one guy particularly open on a play, and it just consistently is there every freaking time. It's awesome. However, shout out to Blake Nicholson for having really good football IQ and patience and snuffing one of the plays out and ending up with a TFL in that situation on one of them. Another great play design ended up getting dropped, which hurt my feelings a little bit. But again, offense did good second half of the day. I think there was some situations, some decisions rather that DJ made that were good to see. And he's kind of like marginally, incrementally getting better every single day. So we'll hang our hat on that. We'll focus on the positive because people want us to focus on the positive, Corey. Okay. So we just did that. Let's get to these questions on the Renegade Express mailbag now, Corey, shall we? Let's do it. How's a transfer from Harvard doing? Is he working at center? That comes from PCB Noleman. He's out there, Jacob Rizy. Yep. He is working out at center. Seems like Maurice is entrenched at that position, so I'm a little bit confused, though, Corey, because when we talked to Jacob Rizy in the preseason, asked them about the amount of eligibility he has left and looking at the depth chart here, and, if you only had 1 year to play, would you have decided to come here? And he's like, well, I could theoretically just only be here for 1 year, do a good enough job, and go to the pros. Like, that's what happens to a lot of people. But, yeah, I do have 2 years. But, no, it doesn't matter to me, the depth chart here. I wanted to come here regardless. I was like, oh, that sounds like a guy that is pretty confident in his skills and the situation and thinks that he can get on the field. And I had him really high in my top 40. I don't see it happening unless something bad were to happen to Maurice, which none of us want to see happen. But he's out there. He's working at center, yeah. He is, yeah. He's not he's not in line to start, and that's not saying he's not playing well, because I think he's done pretty well. There's been a lot of times I've noted anyway where they hit runs up the middle. He's in the game. But he's playing behind Maurice Smith. And, at this point, I don't know if Rodney Hudson could unseat Maurice Smith. Like prime Rodney Hudson. Like that guy is entrenched as long as he's healthy, I think. Hey, speaking of old Knowles, shout out to Jarian and Ronald Darby for coming and hanging out at practice on Wednesday. Yeah. That was one of the silver linings of practicing at the Jags facility. They were able to stop by and say what's up to the Knowles. So old Darby, man, he's hanging around, man. His 10th year, getting him ready to start his 10th year in the league, I guess, right? Like he was a 2015 draft pick. So, yeah, that's good for him, man. This kind of tangentially involves Jacob Rizy because, again, I had him really high on my top 40.
We got a question from Noel Dad for Life about the top 40. What player outside the top 40 has the best chance to get drafted when their time comes, Corey?
Whew.
Elijah Moore.
Sure. Amari Williams, LaWayne McCoy.
Ooh. I'm going to take
All
Amari
three of
Williams.
those.
I'll take Amari Williams. That's the right answer, I think.
I also think both those running backs in some capacity, the true freshmen I'm talking about. Who
Cam
knows?
Davis,
But they both have a
Micah
chance, man.
Micaiah Danzy.
Yeah, Magic Legs and Cam Davis, they both have a chance.
Do we know for sure whether or not Forrest Gump actually said the word magic leg? Somebody was saying that it wasn't actually even said. He just said you've got.
Not only do I know it,
Okay.
this is why I'm going with Magic Legs. I told this story on Headlines. I was listening to a podcast with the writer of Forrest Gump, the screenwriter of Forrest Gump. His name is Eric Roth, I think, and he's written there's like 3 of your favorite movies he wrote. It's crazy, his bio. But he said he was talking about Forrest Gump, and there was actually going to be a Forrest Gump 2 where it's pretty morose, man. Like, he was talking about how he's going to be sitting on a bench telling his story again, and then the number one, Jenny dies of AIDS, as we know, and then his son dies of AIDS, which is not great. And then he moves to Oklahoma because he falls in love with a Native American woman, and she's working at a government building in Oklahoma. He's waiting for her outside of work on a park bench telling his story, and the dang building blows up because it's the Oklahoma City bombing. So I was like, man, and so anyway, he said that he turned in that story, the first draft of that story of Forrest Gump 2, on September 10th, 2001. And the world kind of changed the next day, and that kind of got put to bed, which I'm very glad. I didn't need to see a Forrest Gump 2 where Oklahoma City, the bombing is the backdrop. But anyway, so he was talking about that movie, and he said Tom Hanks' favorite line in the whole movie is Magic Legs.
Okay.
And not only that, when he sends them Christmas cards every year, he signs it Magic Legs.
Okay.
So, or he makes a reference to Magic Legs every time he sees them. And I literally heard that podcast like 2 days after after whoever came up with that nickname. I don't mean to be dismissive. I can't remember who did it on the show. So I'm like, that's a sign. Like there are 35 or 100 more memorable moments and lines from Forrest Gump than Magic Legs, clearly. Yeah. But he brought it up unsolicited 2 days after. I'm like, that's a sign from the universe that Micaiah Danzy needs to be nicknamed Magic Legs. Okay. So there we go.
Speaking of nicknames, Renegade _Bryce, wake up.
Ronald Darby, by the way, has made $35 million in his career. Good job, Ronald.
Renegade _Bryce, wake up. Tuesday on Headlines, the crew was talking about having a cool nickname for a certain position on the field. Maybe I'm biased because of the username, but I think Renegade would be a cool nickname for a defensive end or linebacker. Let me know what you think.
Yeah, we were. You know how they have like a buck linebacker.
Yeah.
They used to have they used to call them bandits and robbers, and now they just call them safeties, even though those are still technically positions. Jack, yeah. Renegade's not a bad one.
Yeah. I like Bandit, though. Bandit's strong. I think I'd rather be Bandit than Renegade.
I think it needs to be the point. Like, could it be specific to Florida State?
Right.
So yeah, could you be a Warwick? Could like a position on offense be called Warwick? And is it for Warwick Dunn or Peter Warwick?
Right.
Pick. But either one, you're the Warwick. You're the Warwick on this play. That's something that could be. Yeah, but I don't mind Renegade. They both frowned upon Scalper. And I get it, but it's still part of the fight song, so I'm going to embrace it. But yeah, he's like, well, maybe we should steer away from that. And also had BD for a quarterback.
Oh.
For BD energy.
Yeah.
Yep. I thought, because you got to have one to be a quarterback.
What about Appaloosa? I just like that word.
He's our starting Appaloosa.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not bad. I like that. That's a great name.
Or like maybe that's just the name of that goes away from the ethos of the question, I guess. Maybe that's like a sub package. Like remember they had Rhino, like when Marvin Wilson was like the up back or something. It's like let's do our Appaloosa, where like you have Micaiah Danzy and Jalen Lucas and Tofi. Like you just have the most.
You have all the thoroughbreds, all the fast horses out there. I got you.
Yeah. Thank you, Corey. Thank you for polishing that one up for me. Anyhow, I've heard you guys talking pretty generally, but exactly how far along would you say Marvin Jones Jr. is compared to Patrick Payton? Little behind, pretty even, better? Just curious as to what to expect from him. Thanks, guys. Support the sponsors. Go Knowles.
Go for it, Aslan.
Well, he made TFL on Wednesday, okay. Marvin Jones Jr., so he's been slowed, I guess you could say. That's a term that Mike Norvell used for a guy that was integrated into the mix not too long ago. So we're not getting a real apples-to-apples comparison. We haven't been able to get that much. But, he's got the right mindset. We heard him speak after practice. He seems genuinely happy to be here playing football, seems to genuinely love his teammates, seems to genuinely love Odell and the coaches. So it's only a matter of time, I think, before we start seeing more of Marvin on the field doing things that will give us a better, vantage to answer a question like that. But by all means, I've have all my stock still invested in Marvin Jones Jr. Enterprises, and I expect him to be a huge part of this defense. And I asked Ira this in the stand-up, Corey, that we keep talking about this offense. They'll get better, give them time as the season goes on, et cetera, et cetera. Meanwhile, this defense is playing at such a high level and sustaining and maintaining that. Is there a chance this defense could possibly be better than what we've seen so far because of guys like Marvin getting more integrated to the attack and to the rotation?
Sure, man. Sure. Again, we have no idea what that guy's ceiling is. Is he a Jared Verse? Don't know. I'm going to guess not because there aren't a lot of those guys, but I said the same thing about Jared Verse when it came to Jermaine Johnson. He was drafted higher. So no idea with Marvin. None. Let's just say he's been a little more active, and let's remind people that there are certain things we just can't talk about. So take that for what you will, but we're not allowed to address certain things. Love that we get to watch all the practices. Love it. But some things we're not allowed to divulge. But, like you said, Marvin was out there Wednesday getting a TFL. I know he forced an incompletion on Tuesday, chasing down DJ. He's getting more and more active.
Speaking of Corey enjoying the access, I enjoy the access. Ira enjoys the access. You all enjoy the access. Our guy from Naples, Mark, was saying, question on the closed scrimmages. I totally understand why they're closed to the public and the media. As wonderful as the daily access is, Mike needs to protect depth charts, game planning, injury information. But what's to stop Georgia Tech from chartering a helicopter for the day, making several tours with cameras over Doak for an hour? Is it a no-fly zone as well? Does Mike got snipers on the roof at Doak to protect the airspace or questionable people from entering Doak somehow to watch a scrimmage? It's kind of fascinating to me that in 2024, how Mike could expect to keep a scrimmage totally private. You would think the IPF or some other undisclosed location would be more private.
Yeah, I mean, they do have anti-aircraft fire, like a nest up on top of Doak, right?
They got the turrets.
Yeah, they got an RPG. I don't know how many they have. That's part of Battle's End, is they buy like 4 or 5, RPGs. Those are what those are called, right? Where you hold them on your shoulder.
Yeah, rocket-propelled.
Yeah. I know coaches are paranoid. I know we're all paranoid. I think that would be going a little too far for Georgia Tech to even what could you even learn from 1,000 feet? Yeah. If anything, I would be worried about drones. But even then, I'm not worried about that. Honestly, the thing that I would there's really nothing to worry about. We should be able to watch scrimmages, but we don't. But if we get to watch all the practices anyway, I think we know much more about the team from the 20 practices we watch, as opposed to the 2 scrimmages we don't.
Absolutely.
So, I don't think it's about who. I guess that's right. You don't want to see guys get tackled. There's probably a few more injuries in scrimmages. Depth chart, you get a much better sense of the depth chart, I would imagine, in a scrimmage, and that's just stuff that Norvell's not all that comfortable with. Injuries and depth charts. So, and I think those are more illuminated in scrimmages. But yeah, I mean, I guess there's nothing to stop technically Georgia Tech from renting a helicopter, but I don't think it doesn't seem like Norvell's too worried about that. It's definitely not a no-fly zone.
Right.
Yeah.
What I don't get is, I understand it's the first game of the season, so there's the element of surprise. But as these games go on, as these seasons go on, every team has access to all 22 of every other team.
Yeah.
So I wonder, how much damage could we do? Like when Kirby calls you in November, it's like, Corey, need you to come home, baby. Need you to help them dogs. Like, do you think you could intelligently sit down with Glenn Showman and Kirby and give them information that we see at practice that would help them game plan and win a football game? And that's not to say that what we're not seeing isn't what we're giving you guys for observations isn't giving you context to how a team is going to.
No, there's nothing that I could tell them in Week 10 that they haven't already seen on film, except like you were talking about yesterday, a trick play or two.
Right.
That's the only thing I could give them that could help them at all. And just so you know, everyone, just to clarify it, I would not do that unless I got paid an exorbitant amount of money. And I'm talking it would have to have 2 commas.
Ooh, okay.
I don't know, maybe 1 comma, but high up there. Let's not go crazy. If Kirby wanted to know about the trick play that Aslan saw yesterday, what's my asking price? $800?
Right.
I don't need the money. I don't want to hurt the team. I don't want to hurt the program. I don't want to bite the hand that feeds me. Yeah. But $800,000 is a lot of money. And then I would just tell Norvell, hey, man.
I let him know about it.
I let him know, so have some counter off of it. And then I'm like a double spy. I'm a double agent, man. Works perfectly. Or I would tell Norvell, like, look, I gave Kirby a play. If you give me $300,000, I'll tell you which play it was. And then you could drop a counter to it. And then I'm just making money. But you're right. There's nothing really we could do, and I think that's why it's just silly to me that more coaches don't open it up. It just doesn't make any sense because the NFL opens it up.
Yep.
The NFL opens up all their preseason practice, not just to the media, but to fans. And I love that Norvell does this. I love that Norvell gets to lets us watch because we get to give real opinions. We get to see real growth too, from a guy that Hakeem was a perfect example. Last spring, I was like, what is this kid doing? Like he doesn't look like he belongs at all. And then in the fall, you're like, okay, this kid's coming on and he's gonna play this year, and he did until he got hurt. Like you see that growth, and that's really cool to be a part of that, to be able to witness that. But yeah, I don't think there's a lot of there's only so many plays to run, right? Mm-hmm. What you would not want is for them to know which play you're running. They know all your plays.
Right.
They just don't know when you're going to call them, unless you're Michigan. Or sorry, unless you're playing Michigan.
No good segue to go from something that's been disgraced, like the national champions of 2023 in Michigan, to the awesomeness that's the Corner Pocket Bar and Grill every single day of the week. Monday through Friday, though, there's lunch specials going on from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. for only $8.99. I still can't believe this. I hit refresh every day on my tab that's got cptallybar.com pulled up on there, and I'm like, how do the forces of inflation and monetary policy not affect Bill and the folks at CP? Just the goodness of his heart. He's doing it every single day, hooking you up. Today's lunch special, cheesesteak sandwich, chicken or steak cheesesteak sandwich. Fries, fresh cooked potato chips, coleslaw maybe. Several options for your side dish, only $8.99. Go do it. And then go play bingo tonight at 7 o'clock and win cash money. Hard. And
again, I want to stress this because Aslan brings up the lunch specials. It is a open till 2 a.m. establishment.
Yes.
And if you're a night owl, especially on a Thursday, you're already basically starting the weekend. If it's a Thursday night, you're looking to have fun, you're wrapped up with your dinner, it's 10:15, but I don't want to go home. Corner Pocket is the best, the perfect place for the I'm not ready to go home crowd. Because it is open. It's usually pretty vibrant every day of the week, but starting on Wednesday and Thursday, really Tuesday because of trivia too, there's people in there. It's a real scene. It's fun. And it's fun at late night. And then there's a chance you could see Corey and Stephanie. So what more motivation do you need? Real quick also, Aslan, I found out a couple days ago, looks like, I know they're not a sponsor of ours, but it sounds like Corner Pocket's going to start carrying registered sausage.
Ooh.
For their sausage bites. So just throwing that out there, folks. A little cross promotion.
Knowles helping Knowles.
Yep.
I want to say mad dash to the finish line, but we've got a lot of questions. But let's get some pep in the step, and let's start off with a quick one. Gator Kirk, what are the new clock rules that Corey keeps referencing? Have they changed since last year?
What are they? They did, but I can't remember what they are off the top of my head.
I don't know either. That's why I was asking.
It's
2-minute warning?
It's the 2-minute warning, but it's also I think there used to be a pause when you got a first down, and now there's not.
I thought they started that last year where they stopped.
No, they started the running out of bounds. I think it's just going to be essentially just like the NFL in every way. There's not going to be any. The clock will keep rolling when you run out of bounds. It'll start rolling again after you run out of bounds, and it'll keep rolling if you get a first down. All of that. Like, I think it's just like the NFL. Maybe it's not new. I think there was something new clock-oriented that was passed this past offseason, but maybe I'm just still thinking about last year.
All right. We keep moving along here. Let's go to a good question. There's a lot of good ones there. I should have spread them out throughout the first and second half of the show, but I like this one. Blue Knoll. Hey, fellas, wake up. What was your most satisfying win, crushing defeat in FSU history? He offers up for win 51-13 over Clemson in 2013, Death Valley. There's never any doubt, and it signaled our return to the top of the college football world. For loss, I will go 87 Miami, 1 point. I was there. It still stings to this day. I just remember being so mentally drained after that game because I thought it was in the bag, only to be left in utter disbelief and despair afterwards. What say you? I'll go first unless you want to go, Corey.
No, you go. You go.
Yeah. I mean, 2013 National Championship game. That's just the most satisfying win.
Okay.
If it's got to be like oh, man. I was so emotionally drained that maybe I couldn't enjoy it as much as I enjoyed the 2003 victory over the Gators in the Swamp. Beating that team in that place, they can never take it away from me. When I'm eating, porridge in a nursing home and I don't have my teeth and I don't even know where I'm at, I hope that's the one memory that I still remember. Most crushing defeat, though, was the following year, 2004 against Florida in Tallahassee. It was the first time we lost to Florida in Tallahassee since '86. It was my last game as a student.
Ron Zook.
Yeah. Bobby Bowden Field. Fireworks before the game. I remember we scrounged up a bunch of money and we bought 2 bottles of Moet from Sam's Club to pop open for the victory celebration that we're going to have afterwards.
Jinxed it.
Yeah, so that's my answer.
It's too many good wins. The most heartbreaking loss, it's 2. It's the 87 Miami that was already mentioned and then the 91 Miami, the wide right. Because they had been number 1 all year. I was 15 years old, which is it's that age, man, where you really start to care and you obsess too much. And been thinking about that game for 2 months. And then, they lost on a last-second field goal. So that was a 34-yarder. Just missed. Jerry, come on, buddy. We still believe in you. That's always the hardest one. That's the thing about Florida State, though, man. Like, heartbreaking. I mean, there was the Marcus Sims fumble. There was the kick 6 against Georgia Tech. Oh. Both of those against Georgia Tech. There was Ty Jones knocking the ball out of Christian Ponder's hand in Raleigh on that Thursday night where they're about to go and take the lead. They've had some heartbreaking losses, but when you're a good team and you lose, look at Alabama. They're almost usually always heartbreaking because you expect to win, and some stuff has to really go wrong for you to lose.
Let's go to this next question here. Nick Knoll 97, wake up. My very first post on Warchant. I've been an avid listener to Wake Up Warchant for over a year now. Okay. But my dad, DLG Knowles, shout out Dad, finally got me to actually subscribe. Happy with my decision to become a member. Thanks for all the great work you guys do every day.
Sounds like Dad is doing a great job there.
Yeah.
Front. Great job. Raising a good young man, it sounds like.
Yeah. Thanks, Dad, for making your son stop mooching off your account and getting his own.
Time to grow up.
Yeah,
Time to grow up and get your own Warchant account. That's awesome.
And Nick, we've been doing this show since 2018. Where you been, bro? Where you been?
Look, he's avid now, Aslan. He's avid now. That's all that matters. We appreciate it, Nick. Thank you, buddy.
He's got a question that I like a lot, so I think it's probably a good time to go ahead and fire up the cameras. And while we have the cameras fired up, let's go ahead and fire up the generator. The generator? Generating discussion sparked by Cummins, everybody. You don't have to subscribe to that. Just go to Instagram.com/Cummins Lifestyle. Follow them. Give them a follow. Let them know that, you're listening to the Florida State podcast called Wake Up Warchant, and you want to be a Nole helping out some Noles. And Cummins also has got people that are Florida State-centric helping things out. We've teased a little bit, Corey, right, about a possible hangout with our friends at Cummins in the heartland of America. It is on. There will be a tailgate with Cummins, and the Onan generators and portable power stations will be featured heavily before the game against Notre Dame. So we're going to try to combine forces maybe, Corey. Are you and Steph going to go up to Chicago, Notre Dame, South Bend hangout?
I feel like I have to now.
Okay.
Yeah,
well,
yeah. That was the plan was to go there. So that's awesome. Right. That's good news.
Yeah, so the Onan Unplugged Camping Tour coming to South Bend, Indiana for the Florida State game. So we'll be hanging out. We'll figure out a way to maybe have some goodies to give out. Shout out to Grumpy BK, our winner from last month, said that the portable power bank, came in clutch for him. He said he was wanting to get another one. Cummins hooked him up. Be a member. Be a subscriber to warchant.com. Get into the tribal council. Get into this thread every single week. The Renegade Express best question gets featured on the show. You get entered into a monthly drawing for a swag bag and a grand prize drawing at the end of the year for either a portable power station or a portable generator. Our weekly winners from the month of July now are ready to battle for the swag bag. Corey, Whack 169, C Swizzle 8, Gator Kirk, and Jamaica Nolan. Without further ado, let's go ahead and spin that wheel and let's give away some free swag. Who is the winner, everybody?
Okay.
C Swizzle 8.
Nice.
All right, so congrats to C Swizzle 8. We'll get his information. We'll send him some swag, courtesy of our great friends over at Cummins. With that all being said now, we turn to our question of the week from our guy, Nick Knowles. And it's a good one, Corey. He wants to talk about mismatches, if you will. Which player, offensive or defensive, has the best chance to be the biggest mismatch for their opponent? Our defense as a whole seems like they are really showing out, particularly on the defensive line, maybe safeties, cornerbacks. That's practically everybody except for the linebackers. But individual player-wise, he thinks Morlock has a good shot with his size, especially if he has continued to polish up his game. Let me know what you guys think.
Yeah, Morlock's a good point, right? I think that's a really good choice because of that size and his ability to catch the ball. That's a really good choice. You don't really think of mismatches much on defense. I would say if there's going to be a mismatch, it would be the defensive ends or the defensive tackles. I mean, they're going to be – apparently Darrell Jackson's one of the fastest human beings on earth, and he's 320 pounds. So I guess I would say Darrell Jackson on defense now that I think about it. Patrick Payton's tough to block, too, for those tackles. But I'll say Darrell Jackson.
Yeah, because I really like Shaheem, but I don't know how you can draw up a mismatch for Shaheem to where he's overwhelming somebody. But, the real answer to this question is on the offensive side of the ball. They have one absolute mismatch nightmare that we don't talk enough about, especially in the context of nitpicking and criticizing the shortcomings of the wide receiver core so far, Corey, because if they utilize this guy as much as that we think they can, and they've shown a willingness to, and we've seen how creative they can be with certain playmakers. Man, if Jalen Lucas is unlocked and unleashed, he could be like the epitome, a quintessential X factor for this offense this season.
Yes, absolutely. I will also say this: Toafili, don't sleep on him. He in the passing game. In the running game, a lot of it's so much dictated. Almost all of it's dictated on the offensive line and how good they are. But in the passing game, those two guys, I can promise you, are going to be mismatches no matter who you're playing. There just aren't linebackers that can stay with those guys. Now, they can the defense can be schemed up where it's never a one-on-one linebacker or he's got help, so it's only going to be a 3-yard gain, and you're all going to be sitting there saying, I thought Lucas would have 6 for 130. You can take those kind of passes away sometimes, but I think for this offense, from what we've seen through 2 weeks of practice, the biggest mismatches to me, Feely and Jalen Lucas in the passing game. That's a hard ask for anyone that's supposed to be covering those two guys.
Absolutely. I like it. I'm going with Jalen Lucas, final answer overall for the entire
Okay.
But I like pointing out Lawrence, man. I don't talk enough about Lawrence, and we need to celebrate just how much he's meant to this offense, and he's got plenty of football left ahead of him. So hopefully this season he'll show even more of it. Hopefully you folks show some love. Go to Cummins Lifestyle, their Instagram handle that is, and give them a follow. Or you can go to Cummins and you can go to shop.cummins.com and use that promo code tailgate with the numeral 8 on the tailgate and save 10%. But, hey. I like this one as well. Island Chief, wake up. Going into the third week of fall camp has to be one of the most demanding weeks of the year. Starters get made this week. Speaking of starts, last season Florida State trailed in 8 of its 12 regular season games. I did not know that.
Yeah.
What?
That seems about right. Yeah, they trailed LSU, Miami, probably, Florida.
We trailed
Virginia
Florida?
Tech. Yeah, they trailed Florida. They were down like 10-0 late in the first half, I think.
Jeez. I remember Duke said that. I believe him. Anyhow.
Yeah.
If this team
Boston College, Clemson. All right, go ahead. Sorry.
If this team matches that number this season, what would their record be?
Not 13-0. I don't know. 9-4, 10-3. I don't know though, because how many did they trail in the second half of 8 games?
Right.
I mean, I know they trailed against LSU in the second half. It was 17-14, but I think they trailed in the second half. And I think they trailed against Florida in the second half. They probably trailed in the second half 6 of those games. That they're not going to win all 6. Right. I would say they'd win 3 of the 6 if they trail in the second half. If you're down 3-0 or 7-3 in the first quarter, that's not really a comeback in my mind. If you're down in the second half, that's a comeback. And I don't know if this team, just because I don't expect it to be as good, and it's a harder schedule, in my opinion, will be able to come back every time they're behind. So I would say you're going to lose 3 of those games.
Okay. I'll subscribe to it. Random_John, wide receivers. What do you feel is causing all the drops? Also, Hakeem Williams has not seemed to have made that leap everyone was hoping for. Is he destined to become the new Travis J of the team? All the talent in the world, but just can't put it together. No.
I don't see that either. Again, Hakeem was playing very well up until a point. And hopefully he'll start playing well again here soon. I would say the drops, man, what's weird about it is Jakai's had some drops, and Jakai's a pretty dependable guy. Toafili's had a few drops. He's obviously a dependable guy. Maybe lack of focus. That could be something to it. Drops do happen. No team is going to catch every pass that hits them in the hands in a practice. They've probably had, Aslan? 4 drops of practice, 3 drops of practice, but I don't know what the norm is supposed to be. It's never going to be 0, or it's very rare that it's 0. So I'm not necessarily worried about it yet, because there were times last year in practice where they would have the dropsies. And you're like, man, come on now. And when the season started, other than Johnny against LSU a couple of times, it's hard to remember. I think Keon had one against Louisville or Florida too, but it's hard to remember a lot of critical drops. So hopefully they just, you get them out of your system. You're growing up. You're getting used to running when you're tired. You're also being covered by good guys, and the ball's on you quicker than you're used to, especially with the younger guys. I don't think they're just used to the ball getting there that quick. But you adjust to it. It's what you're there for. You get adjusted to it more and more, and it becomes more comfortable. So hopefully they just get it out of their system, but I don't know that you can say what's attributed to it. Maybe they don't all suck.
Yeah, maybe they're shooketh a little bit. Maybe they hear those footsteps of Azarie coming. They hear those footsteps of Earl Little coming, and maybe that kind of rattles them a little bit. But they could sit there and hit the jugs machine for a whole hour and a half after practice. I don't think that's going to result in them, not letting the ball hit the ground at practice. Just it's part of the game of life, playing wide receiver. Just hopefully it's going to rear its head in these practices and not in Dublin or Dallas or Miami or where else are we going on the road this year?
Chicago, South Bend.
South Bend, yeah. Yep. Armchair Osceola, more questions about the wide receivers. Hadn't thought about things. The lack of, quote, outstanding at wide receiver currently on the practice field brings me back to the transfer versus homegrown debate. Obviously, the staff has been masterful in using the levers available to compose competitive football teams and turbocharge the program back to relevance. This guy's quite a writer. However, this year there wasn't a definitive game-changing playmaker on the transfer market. Does this lend credence to the hypothesis that national championship teams need to be 80% homegrown and transfers sprinkled in? Isn't the best place for a big-time playmaker to reside already on your roster? What say you?
I just don't know the percentage. 80%, that means you're for an 85 scholarship, I'm going to do some quick math. What is that, 65, 67 homegrown guys and 18 scholarship guys, 18 transfers? That's probably 20% of the team is the transfers if you're doing that. I'm horrible at math when it comes. I'm actually not horrible at math, but I'm not getting
68. That's 68. 80% of 85, 68.
Oh, okay. Well, I was right there then. Yeah. All right, gang. That feels good. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Yeah, I don't know the exact numbers, but I do think that what you're seeing now. Now we can say that, but last year they got Keon Coleman. And before that, they got Johnny Wilson. Those are two NFL guys they got in the portal. So they're there. I'm not saying one is the better way to do it. They would have loved to have Jeremiah Smith. He'd probably be playing a lot. They'd love to have Travis Hunter. I bet he'd be playing both ways on this team too. They didn't get him. But, they certainly were good enough last year to go win a national championship. And their best homegrown receiver – or their most productive homegrown receiver was Ja'Kai, who missed half the season or was slowed for half the season with an injury. So you can do it both ways, but I think what you're seeing, and I get the question, because you start to get, and I know we're getting ahead, I'm getting way ahead of myself, but you look at these freshman receivers, and B.J. Gibson too, by the way. Now, he doesn't get a lot of, we don't talk about him a lot. He's not as far along as the other two true freshmen that we talk about a ton. But, man, I like the way he plays, too. He's really good because he's a baseball player. I assume he's a center fielder. He's an outfielder. He really tracks the ball well. He's good at catching it over his shoulder. He's got a chance to be something. But you absolutely believe 100% that Elijah Moore and LaWayne McCoy are going to be big-time players. Big-time players. And on top of that, you've got one of the best receiving classes in the country coming in next year. So, yeah, maybe this is the route to take for the super-duper stars. But then again, I'm saying that just having watched Keon Coleman get drafted with the first pick of the second round last year. So, I think there's a mix. There's a healthy mix. I think if they can get to a place where they're signing the kind of players they're looking to sign and they're developing them at that rate, where there's only 6 spots available instead of 12 or 14, that's where you want to be.
I'm relatively sure if Adam Smith, the father of economics, was with us today, he would be a fan of Manscaped. Smith, as you all remember, argued things like the invisible hand and, more importantly, specialization, saying that companies are going to grow, hires are going to be made, and they should have defined roles and specialize in one skill. So, yeah, you've got some clippers, but they have a role. Manscaped has a more specialized place in a man's grooming arsenal. Some might say a more delicate role, one involving the moneymaker, to bring it back to Adam Smith and economics. How about the Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra? It features skin-safe blades and a cordless design, which is kind of clutch. So get 20% off and free shipping with the code WARCHANT at manscaped.com. 20% discount, free shipping. Manscaped.com. Be him and trim. Oh, poor production on my part. I meant to ask this question after the Rizy question. I was going to be like random questions about random players for 800, Alex. We go to our guy, Robert Bowden. What's up, Robert?
All right.
I know our defensive backfield has been playing extremely well this camp. We have heard about the skill at corner and one of the safety spots. However, no discussion on where Kevin Knowles fits in. He has been consistently getting playing time the past 2 years, but there is no mention of him anywhere. Last year he seemed to struggle at times, but just curious on how he has been playing and at what position.
Yeah, he's been mainly nickel, and he's battling it out with Earl Little. He's going to play. And when you talk to players about the defense and who the leaders are, Kevin Knowles' name always comes up. And when you watch him on the sideline, when he's not in the game, he's always coaching up. He is invested. He's engaged. And he's an important part of that defense, I think. I think Adam Fuller truly believes that. It's just Earl Little was brought here for a reason. And Kevin Knowles is going to have to beat him out, or he'll be on the field some and dime, I guess. But it just seems like right now, to me, Earl Little is probably ahead of Kevin Knowles, probably has a better skill set than Kevin Knowles, talent-wise. But who knows the defense better? Well, clearly that's Kevin Knowles. But I just feel like me right now that he's out there, or he's been out there anyway, the practices I've seen, and he's competing. I just don't think he's as good as Earl Little right now.
Yeah, The weird thing is we keep talking about the receivers struggling. So the one guy that we've talked about having a good camp has been Malik Benson, but Malik Benson's usually lined up against Azareye'h Thomas or Fentrell Cypress. So it's like this weird ironic thing where your one guy who's producing is usually doing it against your best defensive backs.
Yeah.
And in that vein, it's like, so who's Kevin Knowles going to be going up against? Think about that. If Earl Little is theoretically ahead of him on a depth chart, which we're not saying that there's a depth chart that we've seen or anything like that, but theoretically, so who is he going up against, receiver-wise? And where are those guys going to be if we haven't really spoken about anybody emerging as a number 2 receiver, let alone being a number 5 or 6 receiver? So all that to say that, like, Kevin Knowles hasn't been in a position to be exposed, but he also hasn't. I don't remember like an Operation Takeaway tweet recently either. So take that for what it's worth. I mean, I think it's just kind of splitting the difference down the middle where he's doing well in kind of the role they have set up for him, but it might not be as he might not be a showcase as much as you folks would think going into year 3, stepping up into a situation where he could have significant playing time because of a guy like Earl Little. So well done, Corey. Well done.
Okay.
What else we got here? Let's go to top of the list right here. Let's go to a C_Swizzle8. As I write this post, we are Charlie Ward days away from kickoff in Ireland. No. As he wrote that, wouldn't we be...
Well, he might have written it today, early on Wednesday morning.
All right. All right. Smart. In the spirit of Charlie being a punter before the starting quarterback, what kind of impact do you think Alex Mastromanno will have on the team this year? I was watching the practice footage, and he was kicking a helicopter punt on command to help the punt returners learn how to catch an imperfect ball. Do you think this is something that he's done in the past and we as fans just haven't noticed on television, or is this a skill he's mastered in the offseason? Go Knowles.
Yeah, man, he just manipulates the ball remarkably well. When he's rolling out to his right, or his left, he can do it with either foot. But when he's rolling out to his right, when he's got that kind of time, he can hit those low line drives that are not hit like it. They go far, but they're line drives that have a weird spin on them that returners don't normally want to catch. So they could bounce and roll another 15 yards. Like he could do the helicopter stuff where it's not coming in. It's not a spiral, and it's not end over end. It's but a helicopter. It's sideways. Those things are crazy hard to catch. And he's also good at checking them up. Like I don't know how he does it. I don't know what kind of spin he puts on it, but he's pretty comfortable, really comfortable at having the ball hit at the 5 and stay at the 5. For the first 40 years of my life, punters just couldn't master this kind of stuff. And it's like, he boomed it through the goalposts. Yeah. What are you going to do? But this guy, and really, the punting has never been better, folks. It just hasn't. All across the country and in the pros, they kick them farther, they kick them higher. They're better at pinning them inside the 10 than it's ever been. But, he's one of the best in the country, and I don't know about the helicopter itself. I feel like he kicked some of those last year. But, yeah, that's something that I think they do it, honestly, to help the returners gain confidence.
Yeah.
Like, hey, man, if you can go catch that, you can catch anything.
Mm-hmm.
But, sometimes they struggle catching it.
Shout out to special teams real quick. I think they were doing a third and medium-ish, like near midfield. And one of the plays, it was like a third down, so they got enough yardage to make it a reasonable field goal. So I think it was about a 50-yard field goal for Ryan Fitzgerald, and he starched it right down the middle.
There you go, Fitz.
And then the next sequence, I don't know who was quarterbacking that one, but they were not able to convert. So they actually sent the punt team out. I'm like, what? Like they were punting on their side of the field, which goes against almost everything that we ever at least consider when we think about Mike Norvell and his aggressive play calling. But Mastromanno, I'm like, man, he's going to boom this thing out the end zone. Man, it landed on the 2.
Yeah.
Checked up. They downed it on the 3.
It's interesting because normally you'd be like, well, why are you going to punt at their 44 on 4th and 8 when if you punt it out of bounds, you're only gaining 24 yards of field position. But it's like, okay, what if you have a punter like that?
Yeah, you've got like a 90% chance of it landing inside the 10-yard line. Probably.
Right, and then doesn't that change the calculus? Like, okay, if I don't have a 4th and 8 play that I feel comfortable about, well, I'd rather this offense have to go 92 yards than 56. And if our defense gets a 3 and out, we'll get the ball right back here in a couple of minutes.
Yep.
So that I do think that makes you almost less likely to go for it on 4th down when you have a punter you can trust to pin him inside the 10 or the 5, as opposed to a guy that has no idea where it's going. It's just a spray gun. Then you're going to go for it all the time because you're like, old Johnny might have punted 7 yards or 70 yards. But I have no idea where they're going to get the ball. With Mastromanno, I have a pretty good idea they're going to have to go 90 yards. And I would rather them go 90 yards than me go for it on 4th and 8. So that's going to be interesting to watch.
We did it. One last one.
Let's do it. Knock it out.
It was the last question in the mailbag too, so we're not showing bias. It's the guy in Kentucky. It's Dave. Bourbon is your friend, everybody. Are there players in FSU history that when you hear people criticize them, it really bothers you? I know it's random, but I had a thought in the throes of the preseason practice that it always bothered me when people criticize James Blackman. Whenever somebody asked him if he worried about losing his starting job when Francois were to come back, James said something to the effect of, "It's not about me, it's about the team." He just seemed like a good kid who played really hard and cared a lot. I know Corey's about to say he cared too much. He was inconsolable after that one game. I'm not saying Corey was one of the detractors. It was just people booed him that really pissed me off. I think Blackman's career would have been so much better under different circumstances, and I just liked him. What about you guys? Anyone you want to defend whenever people start criticizing them?
Yeah, I mean, Blackman's a good one. Blackman was. I won't relitigate it, but yes, that was my issue. Is like, man, you not just that he cared too much. As a quarterback, you've got to be able to flush it. It's just that's not something that was great to see because I think he did care too much and he put way too much pressure on himself, which it's already the most pressure-packed position in sports. So that was a little disappointing. But yes, of course, like if Mark Richt stays, Chris Ricks has a different career. If Jimbo stays, James Blackman has a different career. Or if Norvell and Dillingham get here sooner, James Blackman might have a completely different career. It was a horrible circumstance for him. And quarterbacks take way too much of the blame. It's not like he had great players around him, clearly. But, I would say I don't know. I think yours is Rick's, right? I'm trying to think of somebody. You know what I always used to say, and it's going to sound like a shot. I'm really not trying to take a shot. But, like, people used to get so upset with Corey Mangum.
Yeah.
And it's like, man, he didn't recruit himself. And he didn't put together a roster where he's the best option.
Yeah.
So instead of being mad at Corey Mangum, be mad at the people that brought him and started him and didn't bring anybody in that could replace him. That was kind of my that was my. So I would say somebody like that. You know, that's somebody from that lost decade that people had way too much angst over, when in reality he should have never been there in the first place. Love you, Corey. I love all Corys. But even the ones that spell it with a K, like you did. I just think that that kind of stuff always bothered me because it's like, man, you're blaming the wrong people. Blame the guys that made these mistakes where he's out there as your starting safety or as your starting corner or whatever.
There's somebody I'm sure that's like at the front of my mind that for some reason I can't reach into my file folder and pull out. Rick's might be one of those guys. But yeah, to your point, I think that class of guys, that even preceded Corey Mangum, like Kyler Hall, I eviscerated that poor dude on a message board once or twice. Rufus Brown, like those guys that were there in 2002 when it seemed like the slide wasn't just a blip and this was going to be something that was going to set in. Like those guys got absolutely housed, and like that, it wasn't fair. Like to your point, the roster was configured and constructed in a way that what Florida State had grown accustomed to was no longer there. Guys didn't have the amount of runway to develop and get ready, and they were kind of thrown into action a little bit sooner than they might have been ready for. So I regret a little bit of that. But, yeah, James Blackman's up there as well. I'm trying to think of someone else too, though. But, yeah, that's it for right now, though.
I mean, Blackman's a good one because I hope I never killed the kid as a person, and I really did appreciate how much he cared. Again, I thought it got to the point where he cared too much or he blamed himself too much, but and it wasn't healthy, clearly. But man, did he believe in the team? He loved Florida State. He went through three coaching changes. Was he here for Norvell's first year? Right? Yeah, that's right. So, he went through three coaching changes. He never got a fair shake in college. Who knows what he could have been? He probably would have been a whole lot better than he ended up being if he had gotten the E.J. Manuel experience or the Christian Ponder experience, where he had the same QB coach for all 4 years.
Yeah, I was trying to think about, as we leave here, and I probably shouldn't bring this up because we got to get out of here. It's been a long show. But think about what Mike Norvell did for Brock Glenn in Charlotte versus what Jimbo Fisher decided to do for James Blackman from week 2 until, week 12 until he tapped out and left for A&M practically. Like, Norvell was like, all right, man, I understand my limitations here.
Yeah.
I'm going to try to create something that mitigates this and doesn't ruin this poor kid and put him in the harm's way and break him. Especially coming from a guy like Jimbo who had his whole, you can break him before you make them. If you throw them out there too early. And I know he didn't have any really other options besides DeAndre, so you had to kind of roll with James Blackman. But, man, he didn't really do him a lot of favors, it felt like.
No, he kind of just it seemed like he just threw the playbook at him and said, learn it.
Yeah.
We need you to be like, we need you to be DeAndre from last year, who was a redshirt freshman when he took over and been in the system for a year and a half. Yeah, that's a fair point. I would say to counter that, not to, to give Jimbo some to take some of the blame off Jimbo there is, Norvell in that one game, that offense was abysmal. It's not like it worked.
Oh, it didn't.
They scored one touchdown against a mediocre defense. It just so happened that on that night, on that stage, against that team in that stadium, he had the best defense in the country. So he could afford to do that. Jimbo had a good defense in 2017. It was not an elite, great, all-time defense like Norvell was working with those last few weeks.
Fair. I love you sticking it for Jimbo. See what
I
did
have
there?
to. That's my guy.
That's
my dog.
All right, that's a wrap for us. We're not done, though, for the week. We're going to do a live show tonight at 6 o'clock. That's going to be your Friday podcast. So subscribe to the podcast so you'll have that waiting for you when you wake up on Friday morning. Get involved in the chat, too, if you want. 6 o'clock live on YouTube. We're still in Jacksonville. Myself and I will have more observations, more interviews, probably another stand-up recap, perhaps a Vitamin Energy War Chant rap, boys and girls. We'll see how it all goes. Thanks for listening. It's been Wake Up War Chant, presented by Vitamin Energy.